35 years ago now, a book appeared on the horizon of Shakespeare studies that, to my mind, transformed our perception not only of Shakespeare but of the theatre, of the Shakespearean theatre. It was Gentlemen of a Company by Jerzy Limon, our next speaker. And what Jerzy had achieved there in transforming our picture of Shakespearean theatre was to Europeanise our project. Based on the most extraordinary original archival research, he showed that Shakespeare's players were in fact the first Europeans. And in that sense, his book has only gained not only in credibility but importance in our society today in mapping the route of the players from London to Edinburgh, to Elsinore, to Gdansk, to Kassel, to Vienna, across Europe at that time. And he followed this up with two extraordinarily focused studies, Dangerous Matter and The Mask of Stuart Culture, which looked at the drama of the period in the historical and political context, but I think lies behind a great deal of Jerzy's work, which is the 30 Years' War. The fact that this extraordinary project, this great Renaissance European project, was a struggle against a Europe that was in fact disintegrating into its greatest catastrophe. And the book is it has a sombre ending, in fact, Gentlemen of the Player, and so does Dangerous Matter and The Mask of Stuart Culture. That sense of looming catastrophe provided a kind of meta-narrative. But above all else, what Jerzy was doing was bringing together all the arts of the theatre. And he was bringing together his own archival experience with the work of archaeologists and with architects in recreating the theatre at Gdansk, for which I don't need to tell you he is best known. One of his recent books, his 2010 book, The Chemistry of Theatre, announces in its very title the alchemy of all the constituent parts and the different professions that come together and make this conversation so exciting and important this morning. Its subtitle, however, was The Performativity of Time, something that we have been witnessing today. And with that sense of the performativity of time, I'd like you to welcome our keynote speaker today, Jerzy Limon.
Thank you, Richard. Well, I'm going to talk about this strange-looking building here. It doesn't look like a theatre, not from any encyclopedia in the world. Perhaps it is reminiscent of this huge brick church, medieval Gothic church, which is said to be the largest brick church in the world. Anyway, there are also these echoes of church architecture in the form of these buttresses, and it's a conscious allusion not only to the dominant architecture in the city of Gdansk, where we have 14 Gothic churches preserved, but also to the origins of the theatre in the 10th century in Christian churches. The liturgical drama theatre arose in the mid-10th century. So this casket, it's a treasure box for the theatre. This was the architect's idea. The treasure box that has its own program and alludes to the past of the city and alludes to the past of the theatre. The treasure box has this strange projecting element here. This is a lid and roof. It opens like this. And inside is the treasure. The delicate wooden theatre from the 17th century. This is the panorama of Gdansk, early 17th century. This was the largest city on the Baltic, around 1600, numbering 70,000 inhabitants, with a large English and Scottish community there. Even today, one of the boroughs in Gdansk is called Old Scotland, the other is called New Scotland. And about 1,000 merchants and their families, 1,000 people living in Gdansk around 1600. Our theatre was somewhere here, concealed by one of the bastions. This was the newest achievement of military art, designed and built by Flemish architects who at that time were the best in these matters. This is one of the English actors' applications to the city council of Gdansk. In the municipal archive, we have documents. We have 25 English seasons documented in Gdansk. So these were not accidental visits, but a regular activity held from around 1601. The first mention is in 1601, and the last in 1660. With the Reformation, the strolling players from the continent went back to England, and some of them became quite well known in London, like George Johnny. So this is pretty well documented. The applications are written in German. The actors beg the councillors for leave to play, and they also boast about the quality of their art and the quality of their plays. They also often promise that nothing indecent will be shown, because they were often accused of indecency in their plays. Usually the leave is given on several conditions. They are asked to pay some money towards the prison or whatever cause, and very often the leave is prolonged. And this is the, on the right hand side, this is the, yes, this wooden structure is the playhouse. It functioned as a fencing school, like theatres in London, north of the city. So it was multifunctional. And the buildings are standing there today. And the archaeologists have excavated the foundations of the theatre, and we have enough material to reconstruct at least 3 bays of the foundations. So we'll do that in some future when funds become available. These are one of the photographs from archaeological dig. The problem was that in the Middle Ages there was a moat here, and in the 16th century it was filled with earth and garbage, a treasure for archaeologists, and they didn't want to leave. So we begged them. And the only argument that convinced them to leave was our empty coffers. Okay, this before the construction started, I mean, we had to overcome so many difficulties. I won't go into this, but one thing, and Philip Park is with us today, and he will confirm this, that every important event in our history is always connected with a historical, with an artistic event. And this, for instance, is the beginning of the construction, which is a bureaucratic process. The investor signs a contract with the construction company, which takes the land over as its legal possession or responsibility for the time of construction. So, for the artistic launch, we designed yes. Of Venice works on models that he makes. He doesn't present designs but models like this one. And this is treasure here. This is the theatre. And the roof. And the wall surrounding the theatre is also a walkway. And it's standing on the opposite side of the street where we have remains of 14th century city walls that encircled the old town. And there is so a street was created with 14th century wall and 21st century wall. And through this analogy, the treasure box becomes a model of an old city. The old Gdansk had in its center St. Mary's Church, which you saw, and our model of the city at the center has the stage. Also, geography is the same. We are on the west-east axis. The entrance is from the west, and as we go towards the east, we then encounter the altar, the stage. And then, okay, this is the construction, the last phase of construction. And this again is during the construction of the theatre, we also did production of Hamlet on the rising walls of the theatre. We set 4 stages against the walls, and we had on each stage we had 3 Hamlets who performed live and we had projections on the cement walls. So actors interacted with projections. Earlier there was much talk about projections when we did that. So and the audiences in groups of 200 moved from one stage to another to see consecutive parts of Hamlet. So through visiting or watching the actual 4 stages, they could see more or less the whole thing. And many young people came and they will understand why when you see it. And now, before we opened the theatre, we had the grand opening of the roof. The roof is amazing. It weighs 90 tons, it measures 400 square meters, and the opening lasts 3 minutes, and it's spectacular. It is spectacular and breathtaking. So before that, we organized a special artistic event with our world-famous strongman, 5-time world champion. He walked around dressed as a Roman soldier. You will see him in a moment. He's among the young in this country. Pudzianowski is his name. And I know that some English friends of ours, children, were very fascinated by the fact that and in fact, when Pudzianowski appeared in the show, we had about, I would say, about 1,000 young people came just to see him. So this is the way we attract them, yeah? Janowski failed to open the roof, we had to call the muses to help us. So there was the muse was singing, and then the tradition of the theatre came out an hour more, about 100 dancers and actors dressed in beautiful costumes from various productions. So the whole tradition of the theatre came in support, and additional strength was bestowed on our strong man, and he pulled the roof for the second time with success. And this was the effect. The roof opened, and from inside blew a huge balloon, and we projected Shakespeare's embryo on it. Next, what we have, oh, this is the Prince of Wales.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me the greatest pleasure to speak to you this evening at the opening of the Gdansk Shakespeare Theatre. Although I must say I only wish I could be with you in person at what I suspect will be a magical and momentous event.
It's very impolite to interrupt. But what he said, momentous event, yes, everything went wrong on the opening. As the microphone stopped working, we evacuated the building. The building was evacuated because the bodyguards of our Prime Minister who came, the then Prime Minister, they found a portfolio without the owner. And they went around asking, whose briefcases? I mean, the briefcases. Whose briefcases? Nobody answered. Eventually it turned out in the day that it belonged to one of the interpreters who had his headphones on. So we were evacuated for 2.5 hours.
When Professor Limon asked me to become patron of the project over 25 years ago, the sheer ambition of the proposal brought out the romantic in me, and I immediately agreed. During that time, Professor Limon and a lot...
He will forgive us. Okay, this is the opening, somewhat similar. For the opening, we had an indoor show which failed. Outside, it was great. We had Spanish dancers and the show evoking the medieval tradition of allegorical and Renaissance allegorical public shows of the siege of a city, in this case a theatre, by evil forces, or the other way around, the good forces were besieging the city to liberate the interior from the evil. Yes. say at least a few words about our own activity. The theatre opened in 2014, and for the following, in September, for the following summer we prepared our first co-production with the Municipal Theatre in Gdansk of The Merry Wives of Windsor for the Elizabethan stage, and it became an instantaneous success. We had people, full house almost every day. And one of the problems we had to face that many of our members of our audience have never experienced standing in the theatre and had no idea that there was a Renaissance tradition of standing around the stage. So at first we had only a dozen or 2 dozen people standing, but then somehow caught with the audiences and people flocked. We can accommodate about 330 people standing around the stage and about another 350 in the galleries. Okay, you can't see much. Sorry, but this was 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. The competition worldwide was enormous, so we thought to do something original. So what we did was we had 400 mourners marching through the city, crying, and the number was exact, all generations, 400, all dressed in costumes with makeup. We used our garage as a dressing room, and this continues worldwide. We were shown on television in 38 countries, which shows you that with little effort, less money, you can get the news. Okay. Last year we had a small couple in our theatre, and we had some interesting shows for them. It was a short visit. This is our thrust stage. I have to stress the fact that our stage is multifunctional. We have a system of stage lifts, 56 stage lifts, and we can make the entire floor flat, including the stage and the box stage which is behind. We can have amphitheatrical auditoria on both sides, and we can have theatre in the round. We can have any arrangement that the director wants, almost any. And this makes our theatre flexible and convenient for all sorts of productions. Because perhaps the most important event we organized is the Summer Shakespeare Festival, which goes on for 10 days. And so far we've had the festival started much earlier in the 90s. So far we have shown about more than 260 different productions of Shakespeare in more than 50 languages. And hardly any of these productions were made for the first stage. So most of if we had a permanent thrust stage in our theatre, we couldn't accommodate productions from the world. So we had to think this over, and the solution was found that we need an adjustable space that can satisfy any requirements. Yes, these are photos from various productions. Okay, let's have this. So it's from festival productions. Let's see the project. We also have a huge education program. Every year it's anything between 8 and 18,000 young people take part in this. And we also have educational school programs, and schools from all over the country come to visit our theatre, and they spend a day. They have a tour of the theatre, they see the machinery, the stage lifts. In the season we open the roof for them, and they have workshops and spend the whole day in the theatre. And now, I mean, it has become so popular that now the schools sign up for sort of 8 months in advance. Apart from Shakespeare is for the summer. Also enables us to, I mean, we are able in the summer to use the opportunity of opening the roof and performing at daylight, which is not possible in winter. So Shakespeare for the summer, we have 1 or 2 our own productions plus Shakespeare Festival, and also we have an off program which we call Shakespeare Off. Shakespeare is growing and has become very, very popular. And during the year, anything goes. We are open to all artistic proposals. We like 21st century productions rather than the so-called classical ones. We have a special, one of the cycles is Theatres of Europe, and because the theatre was built with the help of European funding, we want to show our gratitude by inviting all European countries to present their theatre in our theatre. So far we have shown 11 countries. Right now we are in the middle of Estonian week. It's usually a week-long event, including theatre, dance theatre, performance art, film, exhibitions, lectures, and whatnot. For next year we plan a Croatian week, Austrian week, and 2 or 3 festival-like events during the year. On the average, we show, since the opening, 120 different productions in a given year, plus 40 concerts, usually rock concerts, pop concerts, and then we can create a space as in clubs, with flat floor and a stage, and then with a standing audience of 800 and 400 seated in the galleries. That's 1,200, so concerts then during the theatre does. With 1 or 2 exceptions, we always have to find sponsors and donate every production. Ticket prices are very, very low when compared to London. On the average, we have £10 and under. That's the average price of a ticket. we don't want to raise the prices because then young people would stop coming and retired people would stop coming, and that's an important part of our audience. Especially retired ladies are the wonder of this world. And they are really interested they come to all lectures, to seminars, they are really interested. Men, as usual, are embarrassed to admit that they don't know something. so they don't go. I think this is it. Yes, here you can see an example of a rock concert. So the place is really packed. And first stage. And here we have something opposite, where we usually have the auditorium, we have the stage. And the gallery is also used, galleries are used as a stage, and the auditorium is seated on where the box stage is. And here is a typical Italian or box stage arrangement. The problem is with sidelines from side galleries. When we have the Italian stage, the sidelines are rather bad from the side, so we sell cheaper tickets and not numbered. So the spectators can choose the place for themselves from which they think they have the best view. The entire cost of the investment was about £20 million, which perhaps is not that much in British standards. 70% came from Brussels, which means also your tax money, thank you. And 30% came from the city and the region. We have two councils, the regional council and the city council, and they also cover the expenses of the maintenance of the building and salaries of people employed. We employed 24 people, now actors, 24 people, and that is about £1 million a year. That's the cost of maintenance and salaries of people. So from what we get from the councils, there's really nothing left for activity. So we have to rely on the Ministry of Culture, which supports some of our projects, giving us 30 to 50% of the Shakespeare Festival and Theatres of Europe. Private corporate funding is not easy anywhere in the world, but in Poland we don't have the tradition of private sponsorship of the arts, and that's one of the major problems. We don't have inherited wealth as yet. Now the new generation will inherit, but my generation will not inherit anything. I don't know anyone of my age in Poland who will inherit anything. So this is the situation. It will take perhaps a generation or two before this corporate citizenship is developed, and also people's consciousness of the duty to support the arts. I'll be glad to answer, and time is short, so I will not continue, I don't want forever, but I'll be glad to answer questions.
Yes, thank you, and there are a few moments of questions. One of the exciting points that Jerzy makes in Gentlemen of the Company is that the English players first experienced the Italian Age Theatre when they arrived at the Court Theatre in Warsaw. An extraordinary example there of cross-fertilisation. and the cross-European influence that this theatre and indeed Jerzy Limon project represents. Your generation, you say, you don't know anyone who was inheriting anything, but we're inheriting, or the next generation are inheriting this. A few moments for questions, I'm sure there are some.
One,
Ian McNamee.
could you put up the picture of the interior of the auditorium? Just two again. Right. I found generally in that part of Europe people are very good about regulations, but above on each level the timber fronts are two steel rails which interfere with the sight lines. And that seems to be very sad. What is the story about those rails?
The story is our 6-year-long struggle with our architect, who had his vision and paid little attention to functionality, and he wanted to create a work of architecture, and he did. The problem was defects, and the man in question is an extremely talented, perhaps a genius architect who has received over 100 honorary distinctions in architectural competitions, not awards, because he violates all the rules in which, to the extent that, for instance, in New Zealand, he got an honorary distinction for his design of Maritime Museum, which he planned outside the plot given. He said it's good for the city, much better than the plot. and he will never yield. No. He doesn't yield in any even little thing.
But so, bottom right, we have these pipes. How do you see over them? I notice in that one, people are standing up to see over the rails.
Yes.
I mean, it's not regulation.
As I was saying, this is, yes, the railings they were not designed by our architect.
Yes, now, who designed them? Was that regulation?
He was so fed up with our fire regulators that he eventually said, do what you want.
Thank you. I thought so.
And it is a problem, of course. And the height of these railings is also something awkward in Poland, because you add also this part to the height. It does obstruct the view, so the third gallery is very bad, with the exception of thrust stage. And concerts.
Sorry.
Yes, you mentioned that the theatre is a treasure in a box. Yes, the treasure in a box. So my question is related to Gdansk, but also to the other theatres that we're talking about today, is why do we keep building them? No, I want them to be built, but the question is that why are we building? What is the motivation if they are sometimes rarely used in terms of their original conditions? So it's not that I want historical production reproduced, but to understand the relationship of the actor, the Ian, the architecture actor and the audience in life.
I think we have to answer this question before announcing the competition. We have to answer the basic question. What do we want? Do we want a space for staging plays, or do we want theatre to be staged as a historical monument? And these are contradictory solutions. If you want to have a historical monument, it is staged in every production. It is cast in the main role, no matter what you stage. People come to see the historical.
It's wonderful, wonderful.
You presented us with a tremendous conundrum there, and a challenge, and a conversation point to continue. Jerzy, thank you so much for opening so many roofs, so many skies.